I now recognize the gentlelady from Wyoming for 5 minutes.
You know, I think one of the things that shocked me as we worked our way through this pandemic from a couple of years ago was the level of disinformation that was coming from our political leaders in our medical community and the pharmaceutical companies. The blanket and blatant violations of our constitutional rights was absolutely off the charts. The government tyranny was something that we'd never seen before. The abuse of the emergency use authorization protocol was really pretty stunning to me, including the requirement for informed consent before someone can be forced to take a vaccine that is approved pursuant to an emergency use authorization. Just the political elite's refusal to acknowledge the origin of COVID coming from the Wuhan laboratory and the rejection of natural immunity was something that has deeply affected our country and will continue to do so into the long distant future. Just absolutely shocks the conscience from the standpoint of seeing what our political leaders did and how things were politicized. Mr. Siri, in your testimony, you highlight that COVID-19 vaccine trials were robust when compared with trials relied upon to license most childhood vaccines. However, just because it was more robust, it doesn't necessarily mean that the process was adequate, and these are two very different standards. For example, the Pfizer trials stated that there is a 2-year follow-up period, yet the emergency use authorizations for children were granted in as little as 7 months. Our children.
Oh, I completely agree that the trial relied upon to license COVID-19 vaccine was anemic, meaning no matter how much delay, how much they sped it up, the problem is there's not enough data in that trial. Only 2 months of placebo control on average information to compare is not enough time to actually assess the safety of that product, in my opinion. And you can see that by looking at drug trials, what they do in those trials. You'll have years of placebo control safety review.
Well, and I want to cover that a little bit. In the chart you provided in your written testimony shows safety follow-up still under a year, and this is for the trial for age groups for 16 and up and 18 and up. Yeah. So there seems to be even less review of the vaccines that impact our children. And you also note that the COVID vaccine trials were, as you say, anemic when compared to drug trials. Mr. Siri, why are vaccines reviewed under the biologics process versus the drug reviews as you described in your written testimony?
That's an FDA decision to do that. I mean, technically, vaccines could qualify as drugs as well, but they are dealt within CBER, and that's an FDA choice.
Well, is there a higher standard of review or more meticulous review for drugs versus the biologics?
In practice, that's what's occurred. Pursuant to the regulations, I don't see why there should be, frankly. It's just a matter of practice, and I think it's a product of the way that the regulators themselves view these products versus drug products. They, in many ways, view themselves as partners with the companies making them. When you watch Peter Marks's video, he very much sees himself as having a hand in saving everybody. He views himself as saving everybody. He wants to, this product is part of what he wants to push out. Unlike drug products, it's not the same relationship.
Sounds like he has a bit of a God complex.
I heard comments earlier about, they believe passionately in vaccines, and they were speaking about folks who take issue with vaccines, but I would say some of the most fervent people who are passionate about vaccines are those who support these products, will support them without even looking at some of the primary data, and will easily dismiss the primary sources that do show very serious concerns.
Well, children and young people remain at low risk of COVID-19 mortality yet the COVID vaccine has still been forced on America's children and at great risk. There are 71,108 adverse events, including deaths, that have been reported to VAERS for children 6 months to 17 years due to the COVID-19 vaccine, and I would assume that that number is actually underreporting. This includes 196 deaths, 665 permanently disabled, 1,518 cases of myocarditis. And again, I'm going to say that I don't even trust those numbers because I don't trust our government right now to accurately report information related to COVID. So again, Mr. Siri, was the use of COVID-19 vaccines in pediatric populations advisable given the risk of COVID-19, the virus in children?
Our firm sent a number of letters as well as a formal petition to the FDA that we believe clearly supported that it was not supported use in children. In particular, this idea that 1,700 children died is not based on reliable data. They can't actually point to actual children that died, 1,700. There are always confounders. There are not healthy children who have died from COVID-19 vaccine in case reports that I have seen.
I appreciate your testimony, your honesty, and your willingness to share this information with us. Thank you to all the witnesses today, and with that, I yield back.